Right, so how did you start playing music, and when?
That was a long time ago. I was 15 years old and asked my mom for a drum set. And she said, no way, it's too loud. But I went to my first guitar lesson, which was a bass guitar lesson, but I didn't know that at the time. I didn't know the difference between a bass guitar and a guitar. And got to the music store and did about 5 minutes of the lesson, and I asked the teacher, so, how do I make this sound like Eddie Van Halen? And he said, well, come on out. And he showed me the guitars on the wall. And he took mine and hung it back up on the wall and said, you're going to have to pick, one of those up there of equal value. Those will sound like Eddie Van Halen. He pulled one off the wall and played a nice big power chord, and I was like, yeah, buddy, that is it. So I started taking lessons for about a year. Gave it up because it was kind of, I didn't have a very good teacher the first year. But then I got a really good teacher who taught me what all those scales I was learning were for. And yeah, that was it. So after a few years of guitar lessons and playing in high school bands and garage bands and stuff like that, when I graduated high school, I went to a school called Musicians Institute and studied guitar there for a year and broadened the musical horizons a little bit. A few years after that, I took classes at UCLA in film scoring. By then, I'd bought a keyboard and a 4-track recorder, and I got into writing all kinds of weird eclectic music, kind of influence from the 70s progressive rock era. And kind of it just grew from there. I was in a couple of local bands, one called Elysian Field, another one called The Unknown. We stayed unknown. And that was probably the pre-24 years of age. It was just kind of, battling it out, trying to play the clubs with the few bands I was in, trying to get signed, trying to get people interested, pasting up posters all over light posts and telephone poles and bus stop benches. That was how you did it when you didn't know how to make it in the music industry back then. That was what everyone else was doing. That's what Guns N' Roses did. So that's what we did.
All right. So what do you do now with all of your music knowledge, and what do you plan to do in the future?
Well, about probably about 15 years ago, I took a break from playing in bands and stuff for a while. And about 15 years ago, a friend of mine from church had some tunes, and we talked, and we kind of put a little Christian group together, kind of driving acoustic electric rock and roll. And I kind of got back into performing at that point. But really, it's just pretty much been limited to playing in contemporary groups at church, worship teams, and various things like that. Currently, I'm in a group called Lev Shalom. Been around for about 6 years. We have 3 CDs, and we travel the world doing worship and praise music for churches and Messianic Jewish congregations around the world. That's where I'm at the moment. What we do, and what a lot of artists do this, even artists that are signed do this. I was just at a show that Steve Lukather did, about a year ago, down at Redondo Beach, and he was selling CDs. He had a whole catalog of CDs of his, and you'd be amazed. You sell 100 CDs, you make $1,500. That's not too shabby for going to a bar and playing a few tunes. That's pretty much what we do. We'll go to a congregation, to a church, to an event, and we'll play, and then we'll have a table. And we'll have our 3 CDs at it, and those people who like it will come up and say, hey, loved your music, we would like to buy a CD. And that's what keeps our ministry solvent. Our music group, Lev Shalom, it supports itself. I've never paid for a plane ticket.
All right. So now, after doing the CDs with Lev Shalom and being in that band, what do you plan to do in the future, if anything?
Well, that's up to God. I plan on probably I'll be playing until the day I go, the day I check out, and in what capacity, I don't know. We'll see what the Lord puts in front of me. I think a He Blues CD is on the horizon, and an acoustic CD as well is also on the horizon. That's kind of a driving acoustic type CD. And of course, in that sort of non-band playing period, I concentrated on writing music and did a lot of kind of Joe Satriani-ish instrumental rock and roll. Kind of Joe Satriani meets, I don't know, Eddie Van Halen. A lot of flashy, two-handy stuff and really fast arpeggios and 128 zillionth notes, stuff like that. The fun stuff, the flashy stuff. And before my fingers die, I want to finish that up. It's a CD of about 11 songs that I've written over the last 25 years, and they're pretty cool. So hopefully one of these days, soon, hopefully it'll get done. Probably by the time I'm 60.